Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Zoom at 8. My name is Julie Peterson, and I am your host every Tuesday night for Zoom at 8. And we have been here for over 5 years. It'll be 6 years in April. I developed this to help you network and learn from industry experts. So 3 weeks out of the month, I bring in somebody who will help enhance and improve your understanding in multifamily as well as other asset classes. And then what we do on that third or fourth week, we will visit as a network night. So you come and we break out in small groups and get to know each other more and in depth. So, you know, I am a loan officer for Old Capital Lending. We are a premier provider of debt. We've been doing this for 38 years, and I look forward to being your preferred vendor when it comes to debt. So if you're looking at a deal, we're going to look for your T12, a rent roll, an offering memorandum, and your underwriting. And we will underwrite that deal as if we are going to provide the debt for you and we will return a quote. At that point, you will understand, do I want to put in an offer on this deal? I would seriously consider stopping in with the lender before you put in an LOI. A lot of people want to just jump in, they get all excited, and they don't think about finding out what's happening on the lending, and they overpay for these assets. And that in this community and in this environment, you do not want to overpay on deals. So tonight, I'm very excited to introduce you to a dear friend of mine. Andy Borses is with us tonight. One of the big challenges in this community, in multifamily, in commercial real estate, is finding capital. And so I thought, start of the year, some of you are brand new and aren't sure how this works. So I thought Andy would be a great person to bring on. He is a professional. He's in the technical director business for the movies and the TV industry, but also as a capital raiser. So we're going to hear his story, and he just finished a book and he's got that out on Amazon. So we've got a lot to talk about tonight. He brings over 20 years of experience in project management with a proven track record of managing projects exceeding $20 million on high profile clients like Disney, Fox, Lincoln Center, ESPN, and Univision. So he is well known in the commercial business, doing movies and local commercial projects. His diverse background not only highlights his versatility, but also equips him with the unique perspective in handling investors' relations drawn from a variety of sectors. In 2020, it all started as the pandemic began to reshape the world. Andy saw the signs and made a strategic pivot into real estate. Over the past 4 years, Andy has successfully raised over $4.5 million and has served as GP and co-GP, demonstrating his ability to adapt and excel in new arenas. Currently, Andy published a book called The Common Thread Method, Your Uncommon Path to Successful Capital Raising. It's available on Amazon and soon to be released on Audible. So Andy also is in the process of creating a mentorship program called Rise by 25, aimed at teaching financial literacy to kids and young adults age 16 to 25 through investing in real estate using the lessons from his books to empower the next generation. So if you've got young adults, this might be a great course for you to join in with Andy and his team. So anyway, I'm excited for you all to get to know Andy and what he does best, which is get to know people and get them to pull money out of their pockets. So Andy, welcome to Zoom at 8 again. How are you?
Oh my, I'm really not sure I can walk through the door after that. But
Well, you are something very, very special to me and to our listeners here.
thank you.
You have done some great, great things, and I'm excited for you to share them because while sometimes people think it's easy, you make it look easy because of your personality and some of the things that come more easily to you. Um, there is a method to the madness of
Yeah.
doing this thing we call capital raisings.
I moved out here a long time ago in a far galaxy far away. You're not seeing my Star Wars stuff. But the dream was to work in television and film, and not a lot of people get lucky enough to do that, and I've done it for 30 plus years. And it's done well for us. It really, it's been a life support system, and living your dream, working on some small movies like The Abyss and Terminator 2, and working on some, small TV shows, and um, bloopers and practical jokes with Dick Clark, and it was just a great journey. And then the problem with the industry is that it's volatile, and there's ebbs and flows in the industry. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, we work a lot of freelance work. So when you're making that kind of income, you're not thinking I should think about my future, right? Because I was constantly working like 7 days a week. Almost.
Yeah.
Maureen will attest to that. Um, I was the first guy that took NFL on the air for Fox, right? So things like that happened, and you get caught up in that in your ego, right? Because you're that
Mhm.
guy, right? You're the go-to guy, and then um, COVID hit, and nobody was the go-to guy anymore. It just
Mhm.
stopped. Everything in the industry stopped. The world stopped, right? So,
Mhm.
and Maureen's business shut down as well. So when you're our age, because we're not young, we had a we sat down and we had a heart to heart talk about, like, what does our future look like? Because if we keep this going, we're not going to retire. Even
Yeah.
though we were doing okay, we were also supporting my mom, who was in a memory care unit.
That's not a cheap endeavor, having
No.
to do that. Yeah.
So she was there for a good, probably, I would say it was a progression, but probably a good eight,
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah.
No. So it's not only the keep up of paying for that, but it's the clothes, the food, and everything that goes into that. So we didn't have a retirement plan. Our retirement plan was being sucked dry, basically, is
Yeah.
what was happening. So when COVID hit, we sat down and had a very serious talk, and then we did what everybody else did, right? We went on YouTube, and we got the crumbs, and it's like Hansel and Gretel, right? You only get the crumbs, but you're not actually getting the information you need, and so you
Mm.
progress to the next level. Like, what's let's go on bigger pockets and see what that offers. So it was a progression, and finally, after I called them snake oil salesmen, listening to a bunch of snake oil salesmen on YouTube and trying to sell you their programs. We found Jen and Stacy Conkey, who Maureen Ashley was the one that said, we're going with them. I'm like, good girl. You make the decision, because if I make a stupid decision, I want to hear about it. So,
Yeah, and so that's where you got started in real estate,
mm,
learning the methods. That was 4.5 years ago.
yeah,
And in their program, they really look to identify your strengths and how you can participate in a team. There's typically three people on a team. One finds the deal, one capital raises, and one is the asset manager, right? That's kind of how that works, right?
yeah,
So it was a natural progression for you with your personality, your contacts, uh, what you really are a strength is building relationships. And I knew that from the very get go when I met you.
thank you.
You're very enduring. You're very concerned about people. You love people, right?
Dude, thank you. Yeah.
And that seems to come very easy to you. So you got into this 4.5 years ago. When did you start capital raising? When did you figure out that this is where I'm going to excel? Was it immediate? Did you have to kind of figure out, kind of walk us through that?
I wasn't going to be a capital raiser. I was in the acquisition mode. I was like, I'm going to find all these
Mm,
properties and then go find somebody else who had the money, and And that's really how this started was, we started
Mm,
small, we did 2 to 4s. And so,
okay.
that doesn't take much, right? You start with your 401k, and I think that's the path everybody kind of needs to start then rather than jumping in. But so that's just a sidebar. But the bottom line was we got into a deal in Detroit and I needed to raise $785,000. And
Okay.
I had I had no network to do that. And I was like, the property we thought was going to be a great property, and it turned out not to be because that's a whole different story. But I did raise that money, and that's you overcome the fear of I'm taking people's money, right? I had to do that. That was the first thing I had to do was everybody talks about this, but it is true. If we come from this mindset of this fear of I don't want to take that person's money because then I'm responsible, and oh my God, what happens if something goes wrong?
Yeah.
So a lot of this is about mindset, and that's why you need mentors and coaches. And so I had a mindset meeting with Jen, and basically the bottom line was she tweaked something in my brain, and I don't know how she did that, but it was you're making their money work for them because money wants to work, so you're not taking their money. And I know that's cliche, but it really is a place where a lot of capital raisers start is that they have to have that mind shift.
Yeah.
So
That
that's
makes
when it
sense.
started.
Yeah. 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 All right. So I know you have 6 ways. Let's see. Let me go back. It's going to be the 6 rules of capital raising. So I'd love for you to share with us those 6 those 6 rules that you believe are the best for capital raising.
Sure. So, I'll share in a minute, but I also teach a class on Monday nights about capital raising. We call ourselves the Capital Raising Fight Club. So what happened in the Capital Raising Fight Club doesn't stay in the Capital Raising Fight Club, because if it did, you wouldn't raise capital. So we're turning that around. So,
Okay.
so this is the first rule. You are always raising capital. And I don't care if you're an acquisition manager, I don't care if you're the asset manager, if you're the sponsor of a deal. I truly believe that when it comes down to the last minute and you're striving to get that last 50, 100, $200,000, everybody needs to be a capital raiser. You always need to be out there looking for those common threads that we'll talk about. Okay. The
Let
second
me
thing,
ask you let me ask you
yeah,
a question. So when we've got people that are on the deal who are looking at the deal, looking for deals and asset managing, do they need to be capital raising?
I believe they do.
I agree.
I truly believe they do.
Everybody on the team needs to be capital raising.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's you never know. And if I can just do another sidebar, we were in a 96 unit, and a week before closing, or a week and a half before closing, somebody with a $500,000 investment decided to pull out.
Ah,
That's when everybody has to be a capital raiser,
yeah.
because we were a week from signing on that deal. So, um, okay, moving on. The second rule of capital raising is stop being needy. So the thought process behind this is exactly what I was just talking about before, is like you have a great product. You're selling an amazing product that's going to make their money work for them, where they're not getting those returns in the bank or through the stock market. So why would you be needy about a great deal? Like every property tells a story. And if you believe in that story, it's like a car salesman believing in a Corvette, right? So think of it like that. You have an amazing property that's either returning great equity or great cash flow. Why would you be needy, right, about asking for capital on that deal? That makes sense?
That does make sense. And I think what it comes down to is again that mindset. It's that you're providing them with an opportunity. And if you don't have the right mindset, it's hard to look at it as, oh, I've got this multi-level marketing product, right? Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm trying to sell that, something like that. That's not the case here.
So don't be needy about the deals that you have, especially if you know that they're going to produce great returns over a period of 3 to 5 years. unless obviously you're fixing and flipping, but that's a different story, but same thing. So the next rule, third rule is there's 6 to 8 touch points after your initial contact. So we all go to these events and we're all talking about, we're all doing our 30-second pitch. That's great. But at the end of the day, you have to keep in touch with the people that you've met, and it's 6 to 8 touch points between the time you meet them and the time you should do a presentation or talk to them about what you're doing, because you're gaining that trust. So it's that know, like, and trust thing. So when you finally get to those 6 to 8 points, actually towards the eighth point, then you start talking about what are the pain points? What are the common threads in the conversations that we've had that will point me to the direction of whether or not this person is an investor or wants to invest. So I don't do anything the first time I meet a person. It's like fishing, right? I'll wait. My line will be out there. I'll be waiting and I'm listening in those conversations. And that's part of what the book is about, is listening to conversations. And it's not about you, it's about them. So
So,
moving.
like walk us through when 6 to 8 points. So, are you saying 6 to 8 times you're meeting with them, talking to them, having an opportunity?
Mhm. Yeah. So
Okay.
the first touch point is obviously meeting them, whether it's at an event, a meetup, you're out to dinner, you happen to meet people that you connect with, right? Second point is you get in contact with them, see how they're doing, make plans if possible, right? Third point is you start talking about family, right? And seeing
Mm.
what's common in that. And oh, like we like skiing, you like skiing, things like that. So I keep a record of people that I talk to from an app I have called Blink. So when I talk to a person, I'll put in a conversation that I had with that person so that I can go back to that conversation. And if they tell me when their birthdays are or whatever, those are all things that make you more of the person they want to do business with, because you're it's again, it's not about you, right? And that's the problem with conversations. Back in the day, I was guilty about that. I was like, oh yeah, I'm this great TD and blah blah blah. I don't do that anymore. It's not about me anymore. It's about how I can help them. So the eighth touch point is, hey, listen, I heard that you're having some issues, and let's college is $50,000 more than you were intending it to be. What if I had a solution for that? Right? Where I can return that money to you, even if you pay that $50,000 a year in 3 to 5 years, you can have that money back for your kids, right? So it's something
Right.
like that. It's always listening. Or if they want to take a vacation, what does that look like? You know,
Yeah, that's so
but
great. Okay, perfect. Thank you for unpacking that.
so yeah, like you and I talked about earlier, we're not the sham wow guy. I got this great product. Buy now. If you act now, we'll throw it whatever. So
Yeah, you're really investing in your investors, right? You're really getting to know them,
yeah.
really having a personal relationship. Okay, great. I love that.
Okay, moving on.
The name of that app that you're using is Link, Linq?
No, BLINQ,
Oh,
blink.
Blink, BLINQ.
Yeah.
All right,
So here's
perfect.
here's the rule I like the best. Fear of missing out. So if you have a great deal, and this goes back to not being needy, right? We're in two deals right now. Okay. Um, the point that I'm making is that when you're in these two deals and people are reaching out to you, the thing that you have to remember is, yes, you might have 30 open opportunities, but they don't need to know that. Okay. So it's that fear of missing out in sales. And it's not a scam. It's just you're trying to get the property to the finish line. So you have to create this FOMO, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Of
Yes.
so for instance, I had somebody reach out to me on an email the other day saying, hey, are there still positions open? My response was yes, but, right? Because
Yes, but is it a good fit? Or yes, but what?
yes, but we are closing on, let's say, the 19th, which is 5 days away. And if you've got a self-directed IRA, that might take some time, or where's, where's the money coming from? Things like that, right?
Yeah.
So
Fear of missing out is huge on so many levels in this industry. It can be really a challenge to deal with so much pressure. Am I going to be able to find the investors? Are my investors going to like this asset? Um, Missing out on the opportunity, is it going to be 10% return? Um, yeah, I think that's very common. Okay, keep going.
keep going. Okay. Capital raising strategy. Select your strategy to attract investors. It's exactly what we're talking about here. The 6 to 8 touch points, going out to various meetups where people aren't all looking for the same thing. Okay. And people invest in you. We're talking about that. Educate your prospects. That's all part of the 6 to 8 touch points. So as you're talking to them, they're getting more curious as to what you're doing, and they're checking you out. They're going on Facebook, they're going on LinkedIn, they're checking you out. So tell me about, what tell me about this real estate thing you're doing. I had a guy ask me that like 2 weeks ago. Tell me about this real estate thing you're doing. Communicate regularly.
Mm.
This is important, right? Even if you've already closed on a deal, because you want them to come back and you want them to invest in your other deals.
How often is regularly, Andy?
Um, so for my investors, we have a quarterly newsletter, and then a lot of people I'm in touch with mostly on a weekly basis anyway. I'm talking to them, but I talk to them even when we don't have a deal. So it could be a newsletter, it could be a weekly newsletter, it could be quarterly for your investors to get them, where an update. Just that communication is important. Okay. And you and I spoke about this other one, have a tracking system. It doesn't need to be fancy. It can be, it doesn't need to be a CRM when you're starting out. And of course, I strongly, strongly work on this. You need to have a social media presence. And I know a lot of people struggle with that. I taught about this last night, especially if people are still having their W-2. And I
Mhm,
teach, how do you stay stealth on LinkedIn if you don't want people to know what you're doing? You'd like your boss, right?
mhm.
Um, and a website, because people are going to track you down. They're going to want to know what you do and see, oh, okay, I'm going to give this guy $100,000, but what has he done?
Yeah, and I would just one side note here, Paula and Andriana, they spend a lot of time making comments on other people's posts. So
Uh-huh.
building those relationships with other people in the industry is so, so, so important.
I know they do because I comment on their posts. And that's
Yeah.
how I stay stealth when I have the time to do that. Yeah. And they're really good at it, by the way.
Hmm.
Keep things simple and repeat what works until it doesn't. Okay. So what I mean by that is you're always trying out new things to see what works for you, and then get rid of the stuff that isn't working.
Can
Right.
you share with us one thing that has worked and then at some point didn't work? Is there anything, an example there?
Yeah. So again, we all we all go to these meetups, or we go to whatever these networking things, right? And
Hmm.
for me, what wasn't working was always doing that elevator pitch. Oh, I have seven blah blah blah, and seven
Hmm.
apartment buildings and six syndications. Nobody gave a crap about that, right? Because most
Mm.
people, I did a test on social media to answer this question better. Okay. I had a post where, look at me, everything's great. Okay. And then I did a post that was a lot more heartfelt. And that was a recent post about the hurricane in Florida, because our 14 unit took a hit. And
Mm.
I had pictures there. And I actually cheated. I went to ChatGPT to help me write this, by the way. But that post got more comments and more likes, and more heartfelt people coming through than, hey, I just closed on this and I just raised this. And people don't want to know that. They don't care. So that's what I mean. That you have to
That's
get
a great
things done.
idea.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a good learning. Okay, good. Thank you.
It's more about adding value. Continue.
Yeah.
Always be learning and be ready to pivot. So this is a big one. Okay. Um, you have to listen to your mentors and you have to pivot when you're doing this as well. Like if it's not working for you, like we were talking about, why? And then pivot,
Mm.
go to your mentors, talk to them, say, this, I've been at this for 9 months and I'm not getting anywhere. And that happened to us, Maureen and I, that happened to us. I won't get too long-winded
Mm.
about it, but I had a wake-up call, and the wake-up call was Stacy said to me, it's not working because you're not doing it and you're not listening to us. Oops.
Interesting.
We
Okay.
had to pivot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next rule. Oh, sorry. We have a 9. We have more. Sorry. Know and follow the SEC laws. I'm not going to get deep into that because I know you do, Julianne.
Sure.
What is your 30 to 60-second pitch? Um, I did this thing about sell me this pen. And if you've never seen Wolf of Wall Street, watch it because it's the greatest exercise. Because the bottom line is, we are salespeople. We might not think of ourselves as salespeople, but we are selling the dream of that property and what
Mm.
that dream can bring to them in 3 to 5 years or from a cash flow standpoint. Okay. Know what their investment goals are. That's important too. So
The
you,
key there is their investment goals, not what you want to drive down to make it there for them to buy it, but really listening to their investment goals.
yeah,
That's a key. Yeah.
what's in it for them? That's important. Again, it's not about us. Like, how are we going to make their money work for them? Like, there's a lot of lawyers, doctors, pilots, they have money sitting there and they're trying to figure out how to make that money work for them, but they don't have the time. Again, what are their investment goals? Okay. And how are their investments meeting their goals? So these are all like,
Mm.
when I say those touch points, this all goes into those touch points. This is what you're listening for. Okay. The fifth rule, educate. How do we educate? Newsletters, dinners, meetups, social media posts, in-person meetings, websites, blogs, and conferences, right? I think that newsletters is a big thing to educate our investors. So we understand far more than they do. And when we show that we're professional and we know, then when I go to somebody and say, hey, I have this great opportunity in Missouri, let's say, and they're like, okay, well, send it to me. And honestly, in the next 3 days, they're like, where do I wire the money? Because I've educated them enough to know that we return their money based on everything we're saying.
Mm.
Follow up, pick up the phone. I know it's so heavy for most of us. Like, oh my God, I got to call 20 people today. It gets very heavy. Trust me, I understand that. But you have,
So I have a question on that, Andy. First of all, you work full time and you're looking for capital almost full time. How do you set time aside in your day, number one? And are you just picking up the calls and making outbound calls, or are you setting appointments? Because it seems like over the last 2 to 4 years, nobody wants somebody to call them randomly. They want to have an appointment set. What is your feeling on that? What are you finding?
well, I like Calendly and I hate Calendly. That's my
Mhm.
feeling about Calendly. Um, I do both. Before this job I currently have now, I spent a lot of time in my car. So I
Mm.
would actually create the appointments as I was driving and have the calls in my car because my car became my office.
Mhm.
right? Because I didn't have any other distractions other than talking to people while I was driving to work, right? So that became a big weapon of mine. I usually text a person ahead of time and say, hey, are we still on? Can you confirm, to make sure that that's happening? I'll email them as well, saying, whatever I say in the email about making sure that they're still going to come to the meeting. And yes, I use Calendly.
Okay.
Um, I think it's a tool that's great, but at the same point, it's it's not the most fun tool I use. I'm
Okay.
a very I'm old school. Pick up the phone,
Yeah.
text, call. You know that's
Yeah,
where.
and every call doesn't need to be talking about a deal. It's
No.
really getting to know them better and seeing what they're doing and all of that. I think we get stuck in, well, this conversation always needs to be about capital raising. So,
Yeah, and it's there's somebody who is thinking about investing, and he was having some issues. I'm not going to get into personal stuff, but I called him just to see how he was doing.
yeah,
It had nothing to do with capital.
yeah.
So you need to do that too. That's part of those touch points.
But
Okay, moving on. Sixth rule, tracking system, which is incredibly important. I am not the most anal person in the world when it comes to this, but I do have a tracking system. I have, like, Google is my friend. So obviously that, right? Pick a CRM. You can use Monday. It's free and it's cheap.
oh,
So what you put on that, right? Where and when you met, what we talked about, right? Substantive conversations. Oh, I spelled conversations wrong. Nobody judge me on that. Digital business cards. Blink is an amazing tool. If you don't have it, download it. It's an amazing tool. There's others, but that's the one that we prefer. And their timing for investments, right? Know their timeline. A lot of people are, when you talk to them, they're like, well, I have an SDIR and it's going to take me 30 to 60 days to do anything with that. And so you have to know that, okay, so if you're closing in 30 days, is that person going to be able to get their money in on time? So you need to know their timeline so they're not getting stressed out. And here's the big thing, don't be afraid to ask them what they have to invest. It's a hard conversation to have. Trust me, I know it was very uncomfortable when I started doing this. It was like you never asked a person in our generation, like, oh, how much money do you have to invest? It's a very uncomfortable question, but it will become comfortable because people will tell you what they have when you've got that their know, like, and trust factor. Okay. And again, are they accredited or sophisticated? We all know what that is. Okay. So here's, oh, I think I
oh,
repeated
went
it twice.
backwards.
Sorry. We'll get through this quickly. Pick up the phone. Okay. And then you need a call to action. Everybody knows what that is, right? We don't have to talk about what a call to action is. But here's the eighth rule. Everything of value about your company, idea, product, or service, I spelt that wrong too, apparently, must be conveyed clearly, concisely, and accurately in 3 minutes or less. That is true because our attention spans are shrinking. Okay. So that's the basis of Sell Me This Pen. I think that was it, right?
Yep, that was it.
Yeah.
All right. So, we've got a lot of great items for to reference. So make sure you guys made those took those notes. Andy, one of the things that I like to do is get people talking about themselves. I think that is the biggest key when you're getting to know somebody. Don't talk about yourself. Ask questions of somebody else. So in common threads, do you give ideas of how some of the questions that you'd want to ask these investors?
Yeah, in several of the chapters we do, and there's exercises for that as well. So it's not just
Okay.
a book; it's a book with work. It's a workbook, and
Okay.
so yeah, there's examples of conversations that I've had that are in the book as well.
Okay, great.
I use a
So
little. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I look at your background behind you, and it makes me think, hey, I want to get to know you a little bit better. I see some figurines, a lot of stuff that is those people that are like Batman. I know there's what is it?
Superheroes.
Superhero. Yeah, thank you. Superheroes. So, just looking at your background, that would give me a thought to ask some questions to get to know you better. And 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 I think that is just a great example. Having that behind you, can you kind of let us know why did you choose that? How has that helped you in these conversations to get to know other people? Because I'm sure there's a strategy behind that.
So again, during COVID, I worked for a company that actually manufactured products for the TV and film industry. So I was demoing how the products work, but that's sales, right? That's sell me this pen. So I designed, there's a lot more than this than you're seeing, but I designed the background so that it would infuse a conversation first before anything else, that I would get to know what this person's interested in. Like, oh, you're a DC fan, you're a Marvel fan, you like Star Wars. So before we ever got into the sale, I got to know what that person's inside, what they loved about these kinds of movies, right? Because
Mm,
we're all geeks. I don't care. You can disagree with me, but I'm saying we're all geeks. So I would get to know that their personalities based on what character they liked in my role,
okay.
and I would switch it up.
Interesting. That's amazing. Thought process that you are intentional,
Yes.
and that's
And
incredible.
yeah, I sold $10 million of product during COVID for this company based on having just conversations about that. Because after that, it was just they were my best friends.
Interesting. So great tip, great idea. So we're in this very challenging time of people not wanting to invest. Potentially, they're concerned about inflation. They may be unemployed. They may not know what's coming up ahead. Your words of wisdom for a person that is trying to get into capital raising. How do you take their concerns, these investors' concerns, and turn it into a yes, an answer of yes, I want to invest.
So funny enough, I was listening to something today that's just exactly what we're talking about. Um, I can get those kinds of returns in the stock market. I can get these kind of returns in crypto.
Mm,
And my response to people that are telling me that is yes, but okay, what kind of protection do you have? Number one, because real estate is basically you're protected by the real estate, right? Number two is crypto is incredibly expensive right now. And what what does it look like for you to get into crypto, right? And then
mhm.
the stock market, well, that's volatile. Okay. You don't know what's going to happen. Even, when the crash of 2008 happened, this is what I tell people is real estate went up in value, right?
Yeah,
After 2008 is what I'm saying, not during the crash, but
sure.
after that. So it's cyclical. And what I usually tell investors is, where do you have your money working for you now? Oh, it's the
Mm,
stock market. Well, what were the returns last year and what's the tax advantages that were tied to that?
right.
Yeah.
Tax advantage is huge.
Yeah. So once they realize that, that light bulb goes off and they're like, well, tell me more. What are you talking about?
Interesting. And that's after 6 to 8 touches that you get into those conversations. Great.
Yeah, I'm always looking for this. This is important. And the thread method is actually an acronym, and I'm not going to get into that, but there's 7 chapters that deal with the THREAD.
Okay.
So, like T is trust, right? H is human connection, R is rapport, so on and so forth. So that's what the
Interesting.
book is based on.
Okay, great. And then we can look for that on Amazon.
Yeah, I
Do
don't
you
have
have
a
a
link, but
link that we could put into the chat?
yeah, I'll get it. More importantly, if you go to the website, I'll give you the link to the website.
Okay,
There is a free workbook. Obviously, you have to opt in, but that's just the way it was built by my designer.
there you go.
And if you opt in, you can get a free workbook that complements the book because the book would have been a lot longer. So
Oh yeah. Okay, so you can really do some good work to get uh put it into place, put it into action. So that sounds great. Let's open it up to anybody in the room have any questions about capital raising, any concerns, any challenges that maybe you're having now in finding money that maybe Andy could give you some thoughts or inspiration. Feel free to hey, Alex.
Hello. Sorry,
Did you
I
have a
don't
question?
mean I did.
Okay,
Andy, thank you for the presentation. Very interesting set of rules. I'll look forward to potentially buying your book. Question for you. You mentioned that there is an option of staying anonymous or at least not upfront in LinkedIn, so your employer doesn't know exactly what you're up to. Can you share some of the approaches that you recommend?
that's
well, I
great.
usually charge people a lot of money for that, but sure, for
Ah,
you anything.
thank you.
And so I've been experimenting. So what I do is can I use you, Adriana, as an example? Is that okay? So I'll go on Adriana's post and I'll see what she posted. Then I'll copy that. I will put it into Chat GPT and tell Chat GPT that I want to reply to this and I want to add value and I want it to have emojis and I want it to have a call to action. So I'm commenting on Adriana's, but that's not going as a post on my LinkedIn page. So I'm staying stealth, so to speak.
I think that's nice.
Does that make
Ah,
sense?
Yeah,
So
that's definitely nice.
yeah. So
so
you're
how
staying.
does your employer not see that? Because they can't see any posts that you put on?
I'm not posting, I'm commenting.
Right, but they won't look at your comments?
They haven't so far.
That's good
They
to
really have to
know.
dig for it.
Okay, that's good to know. I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
And here's the other thing, everybody, is that your weekends are your weekends. Okay.
Wait, hold on. Andy, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah. So your
Okay.
weekends are your weekends and your nights are your nights. Right. So you're working from 9 to 5 or whatever you're working on, but do they really have a say in what you do in the weekend? That's your time. So I would say the other hack I have is not talking about you actually doing real estate, but adding value to a post, right? Not saying, hey, this is what I'm doing, but I've seen the market this week and interest rates are up, blah blah blah. You'd have to use Chat GPT because I'm not being very clear about what I'm trying to say. But you could still add value without saying what you're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So that's the hack.
nice. Anybody else
Okay.
have a question for
They,
Andy?
the whole point, Julian, is if they want to, if they look at my comments, all I'm doing is commenting. I'm not
Yeah,
posting.
yeah. But if it's at 12:15 in the afternoon, you're on lunch. So you could do whatever you want, right?
Yeah, I
So,
usually do it either late at night or like 6 a.m. in the morning that I'll do that.
okay. Yeah. All right, Robbie.
Andy, a question for you. On your 6 to 8 touches, I actually remember that guidance really well from my philanthropic fundraising career. 7 touches per year, different methods. So I appreciated being
Oh,
reminded of it. I've often felt that that's really challenging to scale when your investor list gets beyond a certain level. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that since it sounds like you maintain that pretty accurately.
Yeah, so it comes down to the tracking system, Robbie. and you know, I do have over 200 people. Okay, but I also put reminders. Um, I bought an Alexa or whatever you call this, right? Echo, and she's not on right now because we're here. But I will basically go through a list in the morning and tell it, remind me to do this, remind me to do that, remind me to reach out to this person. So I don't need an I don't need a virtual assistant. I have her.
Wow, that's a great hack.
So Echo's not that expensive, although you could use your phone. I prefer Echo because it's right here and I have other stuff going on my phone. But that's how I do it. Right. I just put reminders.
Do you have a sense if your list reached like 2000, what would you do in that case? Like, if it reached some level where you had different problems, what would you do?
I think in that case, you definitely probably need a virtual assistant. I'm not at 2000 yet, so you got me beat there. But I mean, if you have a good CRM, I'm sure there's a system in there that, you know, like Go High Level probably would have something like that. Do you use Go High Level?
Not go high level. We use Pipedrive, but I know when I did that level of touches per year, it was fun, but it's just time consuming. And so you add staff and you add staff. And so I wish sometimes we did some of those things, like the Christmas cards. Christmas cards are awesome touches
Yeah.
and they're very time consuming. So
Um, I think there's a way I'll go high level to do that, but you and I can have a sidebar.
Yeah.
well, thank you for the presentation. Loved it.
Thank you.
Candace, question.
Yes. So you have all these touches with your investors, kind of coming off the question that was just previously asked. Now you have social media. It seems like, life is consumed by social media to create presence. Do you use any particular type of software that just kind of posts to all social medias, or how do you handle that? Or does someone else do that for you?
I did have a virtual assistant do that for me. She's out of the Philippines. We've taken a break from that now because I was writing the book. So I got to get back to that. But most of the time, as my virtual assistant, I had to do that for me. And there,
The actual engagement that would come back from the posts, so the virtual assistant would be doing the commenting for you as well, or would you actually go in?
no, she would send me every day. I had a list of she would send me a spreadsheet of what was going on, and every day I would make a comment on that, and then she would post it for me.
Mm,
So we were working on several automated systems, but they weren't really working because it wasn't me. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't my personality.
yeah, you have to make sure that that's dialed in. So, yeah.
Yeah, and they're like you can schedule things, and I don't remember the software. I'm sorry, Candace, I'll have to get it for you. But there is software. Yeah, Hootsuite will do stuff like that too. There is software that does that. Um, but I don't use it. I like my personal touch.
I just put it in there. It's called Hootsuite. It
Yeah.
allows
Yeah.
you to put all your social media, and you can put up to 6 months, even to a year of everything that you want to put in every single media, and it does it automatically.
And
Thank you
can
for
time-
reminding me, Adriana. I forgot about that. But yeah, it's a high learning curve though. It's a bit of,
Hootsuite, HOOTSUITE, for those of you who are not in with the chat, but something that you might want to look into. I like that idea. Kind of gets it off your plate, right? Scheduling these things.
yeah, you can schedule it out. It's just the learning curve is I don't know, maybe Adriana's you probably got that down, but
We all are different. We're all different. No, I'm the same way, Andy. It's challenging. So, all right. Well, I want to thank you, Andy, for being here to support the Zoom at 8 and to share with our investors what is it like to be a capital raiser and the success that you've had and the 8 different touch points, or rather, rules of capital raising. So thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it.